Hey, I'm Midnight. I've been a Deadlock coach for a year, and I want to talk about how to counter every single hero in Deadlock. This is part 2 of a 4-part series, and these are heroes H to M. Each hero is going to be broken into 3 different segments. First off, we're going to have any tech to counter the hero, any advice I have, or just general things you can do to counter the hero. Next, we're going to talk about items, what items are good into this hero, how they work into the hero, how they counter any specific interactions that this hero has with items. And then finally, we're going to talk about their key ability, which is the ability I think you should always be monitoring in lane and aware of the cooldown and their ability that their kit really revolves around, and how to manage that ability, which my recommendation is you use the fact that waves come every 30 seconds to monitor that ability. For example, Abrams charge is a 37-second cooldown. So I just think of it as a 1-wave cooldown. But anytime he uses his charge, I'm like, okay, until this point in the next wave, he's not going to have his charge up. Now, these videos are already really long, so we're going to try to cut down as much as we can. First off, I'm not really going to mention rebuttal. If a character or player likes to melee a lot, it's good in them, gives you bonus damage when you parry, someone heals you when you parry, does their melee damage back to them, and most importantly, reduces your parry cooldown. Bullet resilience, spirit resilience, enchanter's emblem, and battle vest are all good into their respective damage types, so I won't be mentioning them. If someone's bullying you who's this type of damage in the laning stage, get these two. In the later game, it can be either of these two, or if the enemy team comp favors either type of damage, all of these items are great. Only small note is that bullet resilience is slightly worse because armor piercing rounds exist, which basically cuts the value of bullet resilience in half. Although bullet resilience does translate 1-to-1 with melee resist, so if you're getting meleeed a lot, you can still buy it for the full value. Next up, I won't be mentioning curse. There's no hero curse is bad into. Curse is a great item. If anyone's running the lobby or trying to 1v9, just buy curse, shut them down with it. Only thing you have to worry about with this item is characters with iframes like, Dynamo 2, Pocket Case, Ivy Stone form. It also will actively stop ults that have a channel duration, for example, Haze ult, and then also Dynamo ults. So if they're running the lobby or the enemy Dynamo is getting a lot of good ults, just use that. Next up, I will say anti-heal, but I won't really be going into specific anti-heals as they're much more prone to what character you are. If the character's running a lobby that has a lot of healing, all of these anti-heals are good, but in general, if I just say heal ban or anti-heal, it can mean any of these items depending on what character you are. Okay, so first up we have Haze. One of the best things you can do for countering Haze, especially if you know she has ult up or if she's picking people off in the jungle, is just play around corners. It sounds simple, but if she jumps you and ults, just being somewhere where you can hop around a corner is super impactful. It takes a lot of value out of her ult to just be positioning around corners and ready to wrap around the corner. If you don't know where she is or you're worried she might pick you off, just play near corners, be ready to circle around a corner, and she won't really be able to jump you that easily. Next up is really being cognizant of her location in particular. If you see her on one side of map, you know you can push the other lane, assuming she's doing well and like she has pick potential and she's scary. Just being cognizant, hey, we see Haze on yellow lane. That means green is more safe to push, more safe to catch the wave, especially if you're losing and Haze is kind of being in a problem of just running the lobby by constantly picking out people who are mispositioning. And in lane, the biggest note is just letting fixation reset. Something you'll see a lot of Hazes do is they'll just stack their fixation, you'll farm wave, and if you're not focusing on it, they'll make sure to keep tossing a bullet or two into you whenever they can. They'll go for a big trade, get a lot of fixation. You guys will spend a while, you'll be farming. Also, assuming, they have 2 points in it as even more duration, they'll keep refreshing it. And then eventually you're going to go in, you're going to take a trade, and you're just going to get caught completely off guard by how many stacks of fixation she's added up on you. As far as items that are really good into Haze, the best item by far is plated armor. First off, it'll make her do 30% less damage and drastically reduce her damage, and then secondly, it'll reduce her fixation stacks completely in half, which really slow down how fast she's able to scale her damage. Next up, another great item is Warp Stone. Assuming the Haze isn't going like for a real ult build where she has Slowing Hex or Silence Wave, and she's going more of a pick or more gun, or like in lower elos you tend to see more like Ricochet, massive teamfight ult builds that aren't integrating those silences or slows or whatever, you can just buy Warp Stone. It's great against her. For one, if you get caught out, the teleport range is great, and just being able to warp away is great. Secondly, you can very easily get out of her ult. And then thirdly, the 40% bullet resist it gives is really, really good. Next up, Return Fire, amazing item against her as well. You can pop it when she ults. You'll be able to reflect a lot of damage into her and just survive a little longer. Also, Metal Skim works like this, but this is the cheaper alternative. And then I also won't really mention this item too much. It isn't better against Haze than any other gun carry specifically, but it is very good against Haze, both the Disarming Hex and Rusted Barrel. They're good against any gun carry. This is the one time I'll mention it, and I won't bring it up for future gun carries. This item always good if, a gun character or multiple gun characters are running the lobby. Another thing I see people do wrong with Haze ult is they're very afraid of it if they have a lot of people. If you have 4 people on Haze, her ult really isn't going to do that much. You have to keep in mind that when she ults, the damage is split between everyone. Her ult is much stronger on an individual target than it is on a group. So if you have a bunch of people in her ult AoE before Ricochet, she's only going to be targeting one person at a time. So even though the ult looks like a massive AoE Reaper ult, it still is only single target, and if you have a bunch of people in the ult, you normally can just, you know, kill her and burst her down. As far as Haze's key ability, it's really her sleep dagger, 26-second cooldown. So again, I just kind of think of that as a one-wave cooldown. It's extremely rare that a Haze will put 2 points into it super early, unless she's going for a dagger build, which is, you know, off meta to say the least. But short of that, 26-second cooldown is easy to manage. Obviously, if she is sleeping you in lane or sleeping your ally in lane, it's pretty scary, especially with her heavy melee, which, speaking of that, if she does sleep one of your teammates, what you should do is you should roll on top of them, and then if she goes to the melee, you can just parry for them. It's a great way to deny her getting a lot of damage off of meleeing slept targets. But if you're managing this cooldown when she doesn't have it, she's also pretty immobile and pretty jumpable, and she's not that scary in lane without it. She obviously has a lot she can do with her gun, but if you have, you know, some good bursts in your kit, maybe you're a Lash that just wants to go in, ground strike, flug, and then get out, her not having sleep takes away a lot of her, like, scariness, for lack of a better word. Next up, we have Holiday. One of the best technical things you can do to counter Holiday is just know that for Holiday to make her barrels instantly explode, she has to melee them out of the air. So this means if you ever get in her face or you're on top of her, it's very easy for you to parry her, especially if she's lassoing you. It's pretty common for a Holiday just to immediately barrel you, and you can parry them fairly easily and fairly predictably. If you can ever get in a Holiday's face, it's a lot harder for her to play, because if she tries to go for the light melee barrels, you know, you can get a pretty predictable parry, although do keep in mind if you aren't parrying her in her face, the light melee will still connect and do damage. As far as items that are really good into Holiday, Warpstone is great. The vast majority of high-level Holiday players will use their barrel to set themselves up for a lasso, because so you're not just like using it raw. It's much easier to hit if you're barreling first, and it gives you a lot more consistency because their movement is super predictable. And one of the only ways to get out of this CC is just, if you get knocked up, you can just Warpstone out, Warpstone immediately, dodge her lasso fairly consistently if you're getting lassoed a lot by her. And it's also good just generally for dodging her barrels. Another really good item into Holiday is Counterspell. Her ults, if you are looking for her ult has the channel time and the audio when she's like spinning it up. So if you with a little bit of practice, and again, this isn't the easiest thing to do, but you can definitely do it consistently. If you practice a bit, you can get good at, you start, you know, for one, if she sets up on you with the barrel, again, same thing as with Warpstone, it's pretty like easy to predict that she's looking for a lasso. So if you feel her set you up with a barrel, or you just hear her like, you know, starting to wind up the lasso, just either reading her with a counterspell or tossing counterspell to block it can be super huge. And then when she doesn't have lasso, you can also just counterspell barrels. They're pretty predictable to counterspell. Another great item against Holiday is debuff remover. Having any kind of debuff reduction into Holiday really reduces how long she can lasso you for and how far she can displace you to drag you away from your team. So having debuff reduction is just super important into her. It also helps reduce the slow from her crack shot so she can't catch you as easily. Another great item into Holiday is slowing X. Whenever she's slowing Hex, she can't use her 2. So if she's, you know, like jumping into your entire team, trying to lasso someone out, just hitting there with a slowing Hex, so you have, you know, 3.5 seconds for your whole team to just lay into her, can really be the time you need to kill her. As far as Holiday's key ability in lane, it's really her crack shot. It feels really oppressive, and if you're just monitoring when it's up, which, you know, by default, it's a 20-second cooldown. So again, you know, 2/3 of a wave, just kind of think of it like that. When she has crack shot, she can do a pretty decent chunk to you, especially early since most Holidays start it. But if she doesn't have it up and you're monitoring it, which you can also look at her and see if her gun's glowing like this, it means it's up. If it's not glowing, it means it's down. So you can also just look and see if she has it up, but if you know she has it up or you see she has it up, you obviously don't want to take any kind of gun trades with her. Well, if she doesn't have it up, it's much harder for her to win trades, especially if she's trying to like headshot you off of her barrel. Next up we have Infernus. As far as tech for him, another big mistake I see when you're laning against him is people just letting him stack up his burn slowly. When he gets a decent chunk of burn on you, just tuck, let it reset, and in general, just hug cover. You don't want to be giving Infernus extended trades. It's very similar to Mina as well. If you're letting him get his burns, he's going to feel super oppressive in lane, especially if he's using his dash to sustain the burn. They're just tucking whenever he gets high burn or playing near corner. They're just kind of poking out, chunking him, rolling behind the corner when you get close to burn is super important. And also always managing how much burn he has stacked up on you, which if you're not trying to check that, it's just this little like, you know, igniting stack, and then it gets full. Obviously pops, it'll also show you the duration, which again, another thing for tech for him is you never want to peek him while you're burning, because if you give him any chance to sustain that burn, he's going to do a lot of damage, and you're never going to win a gun trade with him while he's, you know, sustaining his ignite. Another thing is keeping in mind that Infernus dash can't go up unless he buys Warp Stone, which 99% of Infernuses won't. He has no way of getting up, and especially in lane, if he's using the dash, just going on top of a bridge can be super important to stop him from getting that damage on you with his dash, and again, using it to sustain his ignite. Because keep in mind, whenever he uses his dash, if you're standing in the burn, it makes sure the afterburn doesn't stop decaying, so you also never want to like tank a dash while you're already burning. As far as items that are really good into Infernus, debuff reducer feels amazing. If he stacks his burn on you, just using it to cleanse the burn, and then also just the debuff reduction for his stun on his ult, his slow on his napalm. Also, when he throws his napalm on you, it also counts as a debuff and you can cleanse that. And the reduction also applies to its duration, so it feels great against him. Another amazing item against him is plated armor. It reduces his bullet damage, and on top of that, the biggest effect is that it reduces his on hits, which means it's going to take him twice as long shooting you to stack up his afterburn, which is super important for stopping him from bursting you and getting a lot of damage on you. Another great item against him, slowing Hex. Whenever you use slowing Hex on him, he can't dash. So if he's going a build where he has rapid recharge, or in general just like overextending to push a walker because he knows he can just dash away, tossing a slowing hex on him can feel really good for suppressing him. And then as far as Infernus' key ability is his Flame Dash, another ability with a 37-second cooldown, which again, I just think of that as one wave and a tiny bit of change, but you really just think about it as one wave. You don't really have to manage the and change part. But when he has his dash up, he can escape pretty easily. He's very mobile. He can, pretty much win. He can win most trades if he can get his dash on you. Because if he burns you and then dashes you, it's pretty unlikely he's going to lose this trade. But when he doesn't have his dash up, he really isn't that powerful in lane. Again, his ignite and sustaining his ignite can do damage, but he's pretty immobile, so if he overextends, you can jump him fairly easily, and then he loses a lot of his damage as well. Next up, we have Ivy. Some of the best tech for beating Ivy is using verticality to dodge her Kutsu. If she throws her Kutsu like on top of something, you can always play under it. And then if she throws it below, you can pretty easily just jump on top of something and avoid it. Obviously mostly trying to use bridge in lane. Also just CCing her out of the ult. For example, with someone like Mirage, if you use your tornado on her while she's channeling her ult, it won't actually stop her. But if you use it directly after the ult has started, it will cancel her ult. And with other characters that have normal types of CC like Abram's Charge or such, just use it while she's channeling her ult to stop her from getting away, and that can be really huge. As far as items to counter Ivy, Knockdown is a great item into her. For one, you can use it just to bait her stone form and get those iframes out of her. And then for two, when she ults, you can use it just to knock her down out of the air and bring her right back down, or she'll have to cancel her ult to bait her stone form, and you can stop her from, splitting a walker and ulting away or anything like that. You can also use it on her while she's channeling, so it just knocks her down the second she gets in the air. Another item that's worth mentioning is Slowing Hex has a special interaction with Ivy where it stops her from ulting. It's not really more worth buying than Knockdown if Ivy's, really a problem, especially with splitting. But if you're already buying Slowing Hex for a couple other characters on their team, and you have it or you're wondering if you get it, if you should get it, it can also provide a lot of value into her and just, you use it on her, you stop her from splitting, ulting away, whatever. Another great item into Ivy is Warp Stone. If she's going her gun build, for one, just being able to warp away from her and get 40% bullet resist feels great. And then if she's ulting and she's trying to drop a bomb on you, it also feels very good for just warping into the air to dodge her bomb. And then if Gun Ivy is really being a big problem, Metal Skin feels great into her, and Disarming Hex both feel very good for slowing her down. And if you really want to deal with Spirit Ivy, a decent item into her is Silence Wave for just the reduced spirit power. And then you could also just silence her so she can't stone form or use anything to dodge one of your key abilities. As far as Ivy's key ability, it really is her stone form. Most Ivys will put a point into it fairly early, which again, one thing with these cooldowns is if you ever forget them or you just want to chart them, you can always just look at the enemy by hovering over them and looking like, oh, stone form has a 42-second cooldown. And then you're wondering, did Ivy put a point in it to reduce the cooldown? Oh, it looks like Ivy did put a point into it. It's a 23-second cooldown. So it starts as one wave and a little change, but it turns into a little less than one wave. So this ability is pretty important. It allows her to dodge pretty much anything. So if you're a Lash trying to go for a combo, or just any Bebop's trying to bomb any character that puts something that's, dodgeable, or puts something on her like a Mirage Mark, being cognizant of the fact that she has stone form or doesn't have stone form is super important, and when she doesn't have it, she's super punishable and super vulnerable. Also, this is very character specific, and I'm just kind of throwing this in at the end, but Capacitor is also good into Ivy gun build because she's going to be playing a lot off of her 2 and her tethers, which this removes, and then on top of that, if she has, Tie Docker's build that has items like Vampiric Burst, or Heroic Aura, it will cleanse both of those, so it can be really good for, you know, shutting her down when she's going like a ton of movement speed, trying to like fly around the fight. As far as tech to counter Kelvin, at higher elos, Kelvin's kind of stopped doing this or started doing it less and less, but especially in the middle or lower elo, Kelvins love to melee in their dome. If the Kelvin domes you, just start expecting some melees. You don't have to do anything crazy or read any light melees, but just put your finger over your parry key and get ready in case he does melee you, because they do it quite often. Next up is, depending on your elo, when Kelvin's beaming you, you don't really want to trade with Kelvin when he's beaming you, but if you're forced to or you're in a dome or something, if you're in lower elo, you can just heavy melee him and, you know, he won't really be parrying, but keep in mind, if Kelvin just presses parry, it cancels his beam. Once you get to an elo where Kelvins actually start canceling their beam to parry, for one, you can just like melee them once and then fake melee, or if they're really good, just fake melee initially, but you can also just start light meleeing in their face. Try to get them to read a light melee, be in their face, tap a couple light melees. And again, this is only if you have to. It's still better just not to trade with Kelvin Beam in general. It does a ton of damage, but if you're in some situation where you are forced to, trying to get him to cancel beam with melees is super key. As far as items that are good into Kelvin, Enduring Speed is very good because it gives slow resist. Fleetfoot also gives slow resist on the active, but Enduring Speed can be more universally bought. In general, debuff reduction is good against him, for he does a lot of slows. Pretty much all of his abilities besides Ice Path do slow the enemies, so if you can get any form of debuff reduction, form of debuff resistance, it can be really big, especially if he, you know, starts stacking up that beam on you, because the beam does stack, and you get progressively slower the more it stacks. So if you get to max stacks and you just pop that debuff remover, it can also help you get away from him. And then as we mentioned, for canceling his beam, knockdown is really good just to make him cancel that beam. The stun will cancel his beam, so it can be really, if it's a full beam Kelvin and you just want to like try to get him to stop beaming, knockdown's really good. Although at higher levels, Kelvin's will buy counterspell into this, but again, you're still taking his beam offline, which is pretty important. And then finally, any kind of anti-heal is good. You know, in the early game, buying Healbane so he can't just, you know, heal his team to full and one-shot you while you're in the dome. But then later game, having, you know, something like Spirit Burn or just any kind of anti-heal, but especially AoE anti-heals like Spirit Burn is super important for denying his heal in the dome, and then also just his heal on his nades. Another item I want to mention that's really good into Kelvin is Spirit Shielding. I generally haven't mentioned this item because, well, first off, it's kind of like the Spirit Resilience or Bullet Resilience, where it's generally good into its type of damage. I don't recommend buying it unless you're into, if your lane is like double spirit damage, this item feels fantastic for blocking characters, but into just one spirit character, one gun character, it doesn't feel that good. For like a 1.6 item, it doesn't feel that good because it tends to pop after the spirit character does their burst and not really do that much. Again, if both of your enemy laners are spirit, this item feels fantastic. I do recommend buying this. But if it's just one person, generally, it feels like it pops after the action. But with Kelvin, who really likes to like sustain his trades and he likes to snowball because the slow on his beam escalates, he really likes to catch you out without stamina, and then, you know, beam you, bomb you, and just not necessarily 100 to 0 you, but he wants to keep that trade going as long as he possibly can, because he gets, well, not he gets stronger, but you get weaker and weaker as the trade continues with these slows. So it feels really, really good for denying a lot of his sustained burst. Then, like I said, he likes to continue trades. So this is one of the few characters where I feel like Spirit Shield encounters them on an individual level instead of needing both enemy laners to be Spirit. And then Kelvin's key ability in lane is really, really his Ice Beam. In lane, you're pretty much never going to win a trade with him where he has his Ice Beam up or where he's Ice Beaming you. Also, most Kelvins will start it. So when he doesn't have it up, you can trade with him fairly easily, and you will normally win a trade when you're trading with a Kelvin that doesn't have an Ice Beam up. But when he has it up, it can be rough, and you do not want to peek a Kelvin that's Ice Beaming. You do not want to try to trade with a Kelvin that's using Ice Beam. 25-second cooldown by default. Normally, he's going to put a point into it very early, unless he's going for a nade max support build. But, you know, that just drops it to 18 seconds. Again, you can just look and monitor, you know, does he have a point in that ability? Does he not? And think of the cooldown as either half a wave or a full wave. Okay, the tech for countering Geist is really simple. Just always assume Geist has ult if you haven't looked up and seen she doesn't have ult. Also, another note, I didn't know, some people actually don't know that if you're like really new to the game, the little eyes under characters show if they have their ult. So if there's, you know, if the eye is, I can't actually like move my mouse without holding tab to show this, but the little eye at the top right below the profile, if that's filled, she has her ult, and you do not want to be like, you know, going in melee range. You do not want to be fighting her interface while she has ult unless you have a way of suppressing it. And if you don't know if she has ult, or if you yourself haven't looked up and checked, hey, she doesn't have ult, or one of your teammates call him Geist no ult, which also it's super useful if Geist doesn't have ult, or Geist uses ult on you, or your team's chasing her and you see she has or doesn't have ult to calm, you know, Geist has ult, Geist doesn't have ult, super useful for your team, like supporting your team. But also, if you haven't seen that she doesn't have ult, just always assume she does. Because it's much better just to assume she does and always try to play at arm's distance of her and not get too close to her. Also, if Geist is 1 HP and she's, you know, kind of running away or looping behind a corner, calming to your team, like Geist 1 HP hiding, Geist 1 HP with ult hiding. I guess if you're in low reloads, make sure to say with ult so they don't just assume you're calling to try to kill her. But the tech for countering Geist really is that simple. As far as items that are really good into Geist, Silence Wave feels great for this exact reason. If you get her to like 30% HP and you know she's going to start looking for an ult, just silence her, kill her. She can't do anything when she's silenced, she can't ult you when she's silenced. If you see her getting low, silencing for your team is really, really big. Also, debuff remover, super important. If she's stacking a lot of damage amp on you with her malice, it can be super impactful to remove that. And on top of that, you can actually remove her too, like her suck, her life drain on you by using debuff remover. It'll just cancel it. So that can also be really important for stopping her from, you know, not only taking away a lot of HP from you, but also putting a lot of HP on herself. Next up, Counterspell, also super useful into her. For one, her bombs pretty easy to block, pretty predictable. She throws them at you, they wait a second, you know when they're going to explode. But then on top of that, this takes some more skill, but especially at lower levels, it's pretty obvious when Geist want to ult. Like if you see her going around a corner, or if she randomly turns around and like jumps at you, you can counterspell her ult. You can completely block it if you counterspell it on time. So just if you see it, like Geist is ulting relatively predictably, or again, she's just like jumping at you, waiting to ult, and you just pop counterspell, great way to survive, you know, her ult and really turn the tides. Another fantastic item, Spellbreak. If Bomb Geist is running the lobby, Spellbreak, just block the majority damage from her bombs. It's going to take a lot of value out of her kit. Also, again, taking the debuff resistance and debuff reduction that Spellbreak gives, the debuff resist, reduces how long her life drain lasts, reduces how long she can keep malice stacks on you. Super good. Another item worth note is just anti-heal in general. She has a lot of healing off the back of her too, and her kit, I mean in general, is because her abilities cost health, she likes to build some healing. You know, so if she's 2ing you a lot, just healing a lot, anti-heal feels great, although anti-heal does not affect how much ult she swaps. Now, as far as Geist's key ability, I mean, one thing to keep in mind is her bomb. She loves bombing shop, and you should kind of keep a cognizance of when she has it down. Again, it's just like a half a wave cooldown, assuming she doesn't have, you know, 1 point in it for cooldown, and then, you know, 10 seconds also gets a lot harder to manage. But honestly, her most key ability is her life drain. It allows her to win most trades if she just sucks you and keeps you in her line of sight, which also one thing to mention against Geist's life drain is that it cancels the damage. If you put a wall in between you, it cancels, you know, the damage to you and her healing. So using a wall can be really impactful against her. But also, again, 30-second cooldown, 1 wave cooldown. If she doesn't have it up, I mean, she still can win a trade for sure if she's playing well, if she's stacked malice on you. But when she doesn't have it up, she's in a lot worse position. And when she does have it up, even if she's low, you still have to be scared of her, and she is pretty dangerous because that healing she gets is not insignificant by any means. Okay, so next up we have Lash. As far as tech to counter him, one of the biggest things you can do is just play around aerial cover, play around your bridge, play around anything you can just kind of duck behind when he has ult. And before he has ult, you can just, again, play around bridge, but this time if you see him looking for a ground strike, just hop on top of something. The little, like, pillar things, or I don't know quite what you would call these, are really important and, like, really good to play around, or just, you know, anything you can jump on top of. But if you see a Lash jump in the air, doing a rollout, whatever, just getting ready to ground strike you, just hopping on top of him is a good way to survive him. Better Lashes actually can be pretty consistent at landing on top of the little structure to hit you, but it's not the easiest, and if you see he actually knows how to navigate to land on top of it, just when you see him starting to ground strike, shuffling below, shuffling in front, so he then will land on top of it and not actually hit you with the ground strike can be super important. Also, for dodging his ground strikes, it's pretty hard to just double jump, dodge his ground strike. It is possible, I believe, if you hit like pretty frame perfect, you can dodge his ground strike, but much more easily, much more consistent, much more reliably. If you play near a wall, you see him about to ground strike you, just look for a little wall bounce. You get a lot more height than a double jump, and it can allow you to, again, just avoid his ground strike, avoid his damage. You can hit a wall bounce, double jump too, just try to stay in the air. If you see him looking, a great thing you can do is just, you know, play the floor as lava, try to stay in the air for as long as humanly possible until you get back to cover, or until your team is allowed to, you know, get to you and make sure if he jumps down on you, he'll be a lot more punished. And as far as items that are really good into Lash, Knockdown feels great into him. If you toss it, knockdown on him right before he ults, it'll cancel his ult. He'll pull people up, but then right before he recasts, he'll just fall to the ground and he won't be able to recast it. Super useful for, like, you know, if you're trying to end the game and you're in pit and you know Lash is about to ult, you can just wait, like, you know, be shooting Patron, look in the sky. You see him jump up, just toss a knockdown on him. And then also just when he's jumping around the fight, trying to like, you know, be a little spider monkey, run around, just again, tossing a knockdown on him when you see him either looking for an ult or just running around a fight, super important for getting him out of the air. Obviously also knockdown scales with the further they fall. So if you're hitting him really far from really high in the air, he's going to be stunned for a while. Another great item into Lash is Slowing X. It completely suppresses his grapple. So if he's jumping in, jumping out, trying to one-shot someone and then like grapple out to get out, just once he goes in, Slowing X him, just telling your whole team, you know, beam this guy, Lash no movement, Lash no 2, Lash Slowing X. Anything so your team focuses him can be super, super big. Another great item against him, kind of for the same reason as Knockdown, is Silence Wave. If you see him setting up for an ult, just Silence Wave him. He's going to fall to the ground, assuming if he has Stamina Mastery, he can kind of stay in the air. The Silence Wave will not only stop him from grappling to get back in the air, or stay in the air like Slowing X would, but it'll also just, again, stop him from ulting. So if you see him setting up, Silence Wave him out of the air. He won't be able, if he's in ult, it won't stop it. But if you know he's about to ult, just throwing it at him is super, super important. Another great item into him is Counterspell. This item feels phenomenal to counter Lash. First off, when Lash starts to tether you, you can use it. As long as you use it, like, this is something that might take a little bit of practice. Because you want to use it so it activates when he... It only works if it activates when he, like, left clicks. Like, right now, when he pulls someone, you want to be using your Counterspell. Ideally, you want to wait like 0.8 seconds or 0.7 seconds. It's the exact number of how long it takes into channel. It's been changed a bit. I think it's 0.8, but I could be slightly incorrect. Either way, it's more of a muscle memory thing than like a numerical thing. But you just want to get a little used to, you want to get used to waiting a tiny second and then parrying to counterspell it. Also, same thing with ground strike. If you see him setting up on you, the second he goes to ground strike you, or the second you see the like big blue cone, if you're running away from him, if you see the big blue cone appear like at your feet, just pressing it, you'll block all of his ground strike damage. Normally Lash will flog on top of it too. Super, super good. And even if you f up the timing with ult, if he doesn't have stun on his ult, using it after you hit the ground, you will again deny his ground strike, deny his flog, deny a lot of his damage, or if any of his team also immediately burst you, it can be super important. Another bit of tech I want to toss in for Lash is something I see people do wrong a lot, is good Lashes, when they ult someone, they will ult them next to the tower, just barely out of melee range. I'm not, I don't play much Lash, but so it'd be closer than this, it'd be more like here, but just like barely out of melee range, because what you'll see a lot of lower level Lashes do is they'll ult someone directly into tower, and this feels really oppressive if you know, haven't played much against Lash. But if the Lash ults you into the Guardian, just parry the second you hit the ground, and this one's a little finicky with when it actually melees. But if you parry the second you hit the ground on a normal Guardian that isn't like this weird sandbox Guardian, you will always parry tower. I mean, a Guardian, when he has stun on his ult, which is when it's maxed, a Guardian should not still be up. But if by any chance there is, then that would stop you from parrying it. But if he doesn't have stun on his ult, which again he should never have while a Guardian is up, you can just parry it immediately if he tosses you into melee range and really deny the damage he gets from ulting you under tower. And then finally, another great item into Lash is Spell Break. It'll stop, you know, if he's just ground striking you or guerrilla warfare ground striking you, it'll reduce that ground strike's damage by 75%. It's really big. Again, better Lashes will lead with their, if they see a lot of people buying Spell Break, they'll lead with their flog before they ground strike, but it still is a great item into him for denying the damage of his ground strike, and especially if, you know, you're in like middle to lower elo, where the Lash is really just ground striking without thinking about it, it is huge. As far as Lash's key ability, it's really his flog. Again, 30-second cooldown, so like a one-wave cooldown. It's not even about the damage. I mean, you'll see some Lashes go like 2 points into flog, and then they'll buy QSR and Mythic Burst, because both of those increased damage actually apply to its 50% healing. And then also to note, when Lash does, if he does do that, the flog will drop to 12 seconds cooldown, which is harder to manage, although that build has really fallen out of the meta, so you won't see it that often. But when Lash has his flog, it's really about the healing, because you don't want to be positioning next to your laner when you know Lash has flog, because if he's hitting both of you, it's going to heal him quite a bit. And then on top of that, if he doesn't have flog, he doesn't really have much, like, I mean, he doesn't have any healing, so he can't really turn around to fight that easily. But if he's running away and he has flog and he can use it to run away, it's kind of like Mo and Krill, where he can quite often use his healing ability to turn what should have been a negative trade for him into a, you know, neutral or even positive trade. So if you see him ever with flog, or like not be in range, or use it in the wrong direction, anything like that, no, you basically have the next wave to punish him while he doesn't have his key, like, survivability tool up. Well, survivability in the sense of healing, obviously, is 2 is best for, like, his mobility survivability. Okay, so this is something I want to actually retrospectively edit. I still want to leave this all in, because I feel like all the information about flog is very useful. But I want to say his key ability is kind of more his 2. The grapple, I mean, it's on a 42-second cooldown, so again, one wave and some change. He loses a ton of mobility when he doesn't have it up. It's very, I mean, it's very difficult for him to like escape for free when he doesn't have it up. He's just, you know, a lash on the ground. And then also he still can do decent damage with his ground strike, especially if he's setting up on like the side lane off camel or something. But him having his grapple also allows him to get pretty significantly more damage. So again, I'm going to leave all the flogs, I think, because it's useful, but I actually would say it's more important to monitor his grapple cooldown and just really focus on, again, that 40-second cooldown, because when he doesn't have it, he's much more punishable than when he doesn't have flog online. Okay, and for the final hero of this part, and I apologize, my voice is starting to seem a little strained. I record this after a 5-hour stream, which maybe wasn't the brightest idea, but you know, what's done is done. So as far as tech to counter McGinnis, one of the best things you can do, and this sounds like simple, but it's just really pay attention to your positioning. With her wall, she really punishes mispositioning, like very easily. So try to position with your laner, and then try not to position too aggressively or on wave. If you're farming wave, hit it from a little distance. Don't walk up too far, especially if, you know, you're with a laner who's playing passive and you're playing aggressive, or you're playing passive while your laner is playing aggressive. Just try to mirror how your laner is playing, and don't like misposition drastically, because if a wall comes down, it can really punish you. Next up, if it's a Spirit Guinness build, really try to clear her turrets. They can really stack up, and if you're a character with like, you know, Dormant Bell or Lash Ground Strike, or just any kind of AoE, super important to be clearing her turrets whenever you can. And then if it's a gun Guinness, just playing around her like amp time, especially in lane. This gun has a pretty, like, it takes time to arm. So if you're taking, again, kind of like guerrilla warfare style trades with her, where you're just trying to trade for like 2 seconds and then get out, so she isn't allowed to like fully get her gun ramping up, you're really going to reduce her damage. Her gun does quite a significant amount of base DPS when it's fully charged. When it isn't charged, it's not that scary. It's a pretty weak gun on its first, like, you know, couple seconds of fire rate, where it hasn't really charged its fire rate. As far as items that are really good into McGinnis, Orbstone feels great for vaulting her wall. If she's walling you off quite often, just double jump Orbstone, you'll be able to scale it. Also, if you can't wall jump off of McGinnis wall, but if you wall jump off of another wall and then double jump, you're also able to make it over, although that is a little more difficult to do, and obviously, you know, the map's verticality will kind of dictate how possible that is. But if that isn't possible, Warpstone feels great just for getting over the wall and getting to safety. Another great item in Guinness is Enduring Speed. Even if she's going a gun build, her turrets apply a significant slow when they are shooting you. So being able to get away from this slow is really huge. Also, her wall also applies a slow. Just any kind of debuff resistance for these slows, or especially Enduring Speed, because it specifically gives slow resist, feels really good to just, again, not just like get beamed by a line of turrets. Another great item is if you're into Spirit McGinnis, Knockdown feels great. Spirit McGinnis relies a lot on her ult, just like a wall ult combo, to do a ton of damage. If you're using Knockdown, again, this is a channel ult, so getting Knockdown will stop it. So if you see her, you know, starting to ult, you see her go for a wall ult play, just using Knockdown will just cancel her ult, and then you can, you know, really take away a lot of her damage. And then also, if she's going a gun build, Return Fire or Metal Skin both feel great into her, because again, keep in mind she has to ramp up her gun. So using anything like Return Fire or like Metal Skin that force her to stop shooting can be really impactful. And then also it can be really important just for buying time. If she's going for a wall play to try to like kill you while she separates you from your team, using Return Fire to 6 seconds, it buys you while it's up, or 3 for the Metal Skin, can be super key for just giving your team time to like scale this wall with Warpstone or such. And then as far as McGinnis' key ability, it's her wall. It has a long cooldown, 50-second cooldown. Again, I just think of that as a 2-wave cooldown. She's very threatening when she has her wall. If you make any mistakes, she can cut you off from your teammates. When she doesn't have it up, she's a lot less scary. I don't think I've seen a McGinnis build that goes 2 points into wall early. Oh, I guess I haven't seen a non-meme build that goes 2 points into wall early, so you don't really need to expect her to pivot into having 30-second CDR on it, but it is worth mentioning that 2 levels does reduce the cooldown. But again, just playing around this wall and making sure when she doesn't have it online, for one, she only has 2 stams, so it's kind of difficult for her to get away without her wall herself. Then also, she can't really cut you off from your teammates or wave. You can just go up, siege wave, have a good time. Okay, well, that's it for part 2. I know I said it's H to M, but we do also still have Mina. I'm trying to do 11 heroes per guide because it just works out perfectly in 4 parts, and the videos are about 20 minutes, which is honestly longer than I'd like, but as you can see, there isn't much fluff to cut, to say the very least. So, if you like the video, you know what to do. If you want to see the next part, again, you know what to do. It'll come out. I'm trying to get them out every 2 days, so I'll try to get out in 2 days. The 4th part might be a little stalled, because if, you know, last one performed well, if these perform well, low-key, I might try to get a sponsor on the 4th one, so we'll see. But expect the next one in 2 days. If you haven't seen the first part, it'll be like a card at the end. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, keep it real.